Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome. My name is Sarah Zimmerman. I'm the Teen and Reference Librarian at the Mark Twain Library. Thank you all so much for sharing part of another snowy morning with us. I see the sun is out, so hopefully some of this will be melting away soon. I'm excited to introduce those of you who don't know Matt. Matt Musico is a college counselor with Collegewise in Westport. Matt has become a frequent contributor to our library college events and programs. So it's great to welcome him back. He has a lot of experience in the business and also was a admissions officer for his alma mater, Sacred Heart. He just didn't want to leave. He wanted to be a perma student. So he stayed at his school after he graduated, and now he is with Collegewise. And I just wanted to say welcome to Matt, and thank you all for being here. Also want to mention we are recording the program. So for anybody who misses parts of it or can't stay with us the whole time, this will be available on our YouTube channel. I'll send you all the recording after the program. And without further ado, I will pass it over to Matt.
Thank you, Sarah, and good morning to everyone. I just want to echo what Sarah said about spending your snowy Saturday morning with me. I know there are probably, hopefully, some other more exciting things you'd like to do on a morning like this, especially with the sun out. But I appreciate you taking some time to listen to what I have to say. At least we can imagine that summer is coming today, because we'll be talking about summertime and summer activities and things like that, even though there is snow on the ground. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to share my screen. So I have a PowerPoint that I do want to have available. There we go. Oh, hold on a second. That's not what I'm doing. I need to share my screen first before I do that. I have done this before, even though it doesn't look like I just did. But here, let me actually share my screen, and then I can start the PowerPoint. Okay, there we go. All right, sweet. So like I was just saying, I'm sure some of you heard Sarah and I talking about it before. We had come up with this presentation topic last year for obvious reasons, because the pandemic hit and everyone who had certain summer plans pretty much all got canceled because of everything that was going on. And we thought it was a good idea to talk about how to get creative with your summer, because it looks so different than any other summer that we've ever really known. And selfishly, I was hoping that we wouldn't have to continue talking about getting creative and be able to have some kind of normalcy back in our lives a year later. But here we are, the pandemic has almost turned one here in the States, at least, like officially with the lockdowns and stuff up in our area. But still a pertinent topic. And I think for a lot of students, especially, even though it seems as if there's a little bit of a light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccines getting distributed and things like that, it's still, the summer is still not going to look exactly how we would all want it to be, or just how we would remember it being, normal back, way back then, like 2 years ago, which feels like 20 years ago at this point. So I do want to go through just a bunch of general ideas on how students can get creative, because I'm having conversations with my students right now. We started talking about it in January and February, thinking about, okay, what do you want to do with your summer? How do you want to structure your ideal summer? And this year it's looked a lot different, because we kind of talk about it in two different ways. One way, when thinking about COVID not necessarily being an obstacle to having the type of summer that they want. And for some people, especially for the students that I counsel outside of the Northeast, what their summer could potentially look like if COVID is still a big obstacle. Because I have some students who are in the Carolinas, in Texas, out west in California as well too. So it's a really pertinent subject still, and it's nice to always be able to get some ideas flowing, just because the majority of us have been sitting and staring at the same four walls for the last year or so. So it's kind of hard to get creative when you're seeing the same thing and talking to the same people and seeing the same people all the time, it seems like. So first, just want to introduce Collegewise and myself, although Sarah did a really nice job of introducing me. If you're not familiar with Collegewise, we're the nation's largest college admissions company, and we do exactly what it sounds like. We meet students at all ages and stages of the admissions process, and we basically try and meet them where they are with regard to what they're looking for. And the most common area where we start with students is where they come to us knowing if they want to go to college, maybe having an idea or two of what they want to major in or types of colleges they want to go to, or having no idea at all. And we help them build a balanced list, kind of coach them through the research process. When we're able to do some kind of visiting, the visiting process, interviews, and then obviously getting ready to fill out, submit applications, write essays, write supplements, and then actually, get them submitted and wait for decisions coming back from schools. So we've been around since 1999, and we have counselors all over the country. And we've been lucky enough to be able to work with more than 20,000 students, helping them find their best fit college for their college career. And for myself, like Sarah said, I loved my time at Sacred Heart University so much I didn't want to leave. And while I did graduate, which is a good thing, I didn't actually have to leave campus because shortly after I graduated, I came back and worked in the admissions office for about 3.5 years or so. And during my time at Sacred Heart, I had a few different responsibilities. My main responsibility was recruiting incoming freshmen within the state of New York. I started in the upstate New York territory and then moved down to Westchester. And once I moved down to Westchester, I also oversaw all the recruitment within New York State. Some of my other responsibilities were being the admissions liaison for our Division I athletics department and also our club sports athletic department, and then also the College of Business as well too. During my time at Sacred Heart, I read probably a little over 4,000 or so applications. So I have a really good idea of what makes a really good applicant and what's a really good authentic story for an applicant and what's not necessarily so good as well at the same time too. So for what we're going to be covering today, there are going to be three main focuses that we're going to have. The first one is going to be focusing on what we can and can't control. Then we'll talk about the importance of being authentic and EQ, emotional intelligence, and then also touching upon some broad and then also some more specific examples about different types of activities, whether they're interest-based, academic-based, or career-related, and obviously leaving it open for questions at the end. If there are any specific questions along the way as I kind of move through this presentation, I will stop here or there just to kind of see if there's anything. So obviously, if you feel comfortable, feel free to unmute yourself and just stop me and ask a question. Or if you're more comfortable just throwing it into the chat, as Sarah, you're usually pretty good at helping me out there because I can't see it while I'm presenting. If you throw it in the chat, Sarah will get my attention and she can ask me that question and I'll be able to answer it at that point in time. Okay, so let's get started. So I think this goes without saying, and I'm sure, I'm most certainly not the first person to be talking about this, but this past year has been sad and frustrating on many different levels. And it's even more sad because it's almost been a full year at this particular point in time. So there's been a lot of uncertainty over the past 11, 12 months with regard to everything that we pretty much took for granted. Going to school, being able to see friends and family and things like that, being able to travel and get out of the house. Just all those things have really kind of just been the very basic things that we used to take for granted got stripped away. And a lot of things, whenever I talk to students these days, especially over the past year, I always used to do it anyways, but I feel like it's much more important now more than ever to kind of just like check in on their mental health and see how they're doing. And I think before you start thinking about things you want to do, outside the house or things you want to do for college or experiences that you want to have, it's always good to take stock of how you're doing and how the students are doing as well. Just because this is not a situation that they would have ever imagined that they would have to be in, whether they're going to school virtually full time or hybrid or whatever it may be. So making sure that they're getting you're getting all your basic needs met. Obviously the super basic stuff: shelter, food, water, electricity, all that kind of stuff. Internet, which kind of sounds silly that's like a necessity, but it is these days because that's the only way you can connect with people really outside your house, and all that stuff. And outside of that, you also want to make sure that I also want to make sure that my students are still feeling connected in some way to the people outside of their house, whether it be friends, extended family, counselors, teachers, people within their local community, church community, whatever they're able to still be involved in, because it's nice to be able to. It's really easy, as we've all been able to see. It's been real easy to isolate over the past year. because first of all, we've had to, but also, some people like doing Zoom stuff. Some people get Zoom fatigue. I know I've certainly felt that at certain points throughout this past year. It's really easy to kind of just retreat into your own shell and just kind of do your own thing and then not really talk to a lot of people. So it's important to make sure that they're still feeling connected and, fostering those relationships and maintaining them throughout, because it's a lot more difficult to do that these days than ever before. And I mentioned those two things first because everything that comes after that and everything that I'm going to be talking about after this a little bit, it's not really as valuable. It's one of those things where they talk about, you can't help somebody on a plane with when the oxygen masks come down until you get the oxygen mask on yourself. You can take care of yourself first, then you take care of other people. So it's kind of the same idea. You want to take care of yourself, make sure your basic needs are met. You're still feeling connected with other people who are close to you. And then you can feel like you can make progress in other areas as well. All right, so what we can control. I mean, if there's been any particular point in time in our lives where we've seen a lot of things just kind of spiral out of our control, it's been this. Not being able to do many things outside the house, or just live life the way we've always been able to live it. There's a lot of uncertainty just in life in general, and then especially also in the admissions process. And the questions that I've gotten from families and students over the past year have all been very valid, and they're all coming from this feeling of being scared and worried about what's to come, what's the future going to hold, how are we going to make up for this quote unquote lost time, and things like that, which is completely valid. And usually my question or my answer to those questions involves what can we control in this particular situation. Obviously, as an example, let's say someone is an athlete and wants to play in college. Well, if they're a spring sport player, last spring was canceled. They didn't really get a chance to do anything over the summer. They didn't get to do any kind of showcases or anything like that. If they had plans on playing Division I sports, the recruitment dead period kind of washed away any opportunity to meeting coaches in person and things like that. It's an unfortunate situation, and it makes everyone worried, who has those kinds of goals. And, we could take out that goal and plot any other goal in there, and we're all kind of feeling the same way. But the thought process here is that, first of all, everyone is feeling the same thing that's in that particular situation. So it's not as if it's a singular type of situation that we're dealing with, but the only thing we can control are the things that are, immediately within your grasp, your grades and your test scores, and, everything that's academically related, how you spend your time, the extra free time that you have at home, and all those kinds of things. So it's really important to, make sure you're focusing on yourself in a way that's, not necessarily selfish, but, we want to make sure we take care of ourselves and control the things that we can control, and then know that the things that are not in our control, they will eventually work themselves out. Because as long as you trust your own process and do the things that you need to do to put yourself in the best position for whatever goals you may have, that's the best that you can do. And I think anyone who does that and knows that they've done that can sleep well at night, knowing that they've done everything that they can that's possibly within their control. And the other variables, we'll deal with those variables when we get to them as well. So it may seem like a strange time to be talking about emotional intelligence when we're inundated with all the numerical values of the admissions process, talking about how GPAs change, which schools are test optional, which schools are not, which schools will remain test optional for next year and the year after that and the year after that, and things like that. How admissions officers are going to be viewing transcripts because of the virtual school. If especially last year when there were a lot of pass fail stuff going on for the final quarter and things like that. But this is actually the perfect moment to be discussing this stuff, because now is one of the very, when it comes to emotional intelligence and how you're spending your time, all this extra free time that you may have, or how you have to craft your own summer experience because what you would really want to do isn't necessarily available. This time period, even though we look back at this past year and think, man, 2020 was such a dumpster fire and such a waste, and I can't believe I missed all of these things, and all those thoughts are very valid. However, the people who end up doing well, and from what I've seen over the past year, at least for students who have done well in the admissions process, are ones who have approached this period of time, also thinking about how their family and everyone, all their loved ones are safe and healthy and things like that, They use this extra time as more of an opportunity to do more things that they want to do instead of viewing it as an obstacle in the way of doing the things that they want to do. So there's still a lot of anxiety around all the quantitative stuff when it comes to the admissions process. Like the courses that you're taking, the rigor of a student's transcript, the grades that they've earned, especially since quote unquote going to school has looked so different for everyone over the past calendar year or so. But again, we're trying to control the controllables here. So that's really important to remember throughout this process. And students really haven't had much of a say about the situation that they've been put in. But the best thing that they can do is maximize the opportunity that they've been given to do other things, which I will dive more into throughout this presentation as well. Most colleges are quite comfortable with saying that the anxiety and uncertainty around the past year is perfectly okay, because they've also felt the same thing. And especially with people in admissions, they've been doing everything on the fly because it will be nice when we get to live in precedented times again instead of unprecedented times. Let's just put it that way. People were really clamoring for it to be, the way that it used to be again, which who knows, what degree that'll actually happen. But again, you can control the grades that you earn, the classes that you take, the test scores that you get if you're able to sit for tests and things like that, and how you spend your free time. And those are the things that you need to focus on throughout this period of time. And you don't want to necessarily think too much about the quote unquote formula when it comes to getting accepted or the admissions process. There really is no true formula that admissions counselors like plop numbers into and it spits out some kind of number. And if you're above this number, you get accepted. If you're below that number, you don't get accepted. There's no real formula when it comes to that kind of stuff. But the socio-emotional learning that will be even more central to the way colleges view applications, because GPAs will look different. Who knows if they're going to remain test optional? And if they do, that's something that they have to adjust for too, especially with some of these more highly selective colleges over this past year that have gone test optional. For the ones that remain, they're going to expect there was a huge application surge among very highly selective schools over this past year because that barrier of testing got taken away for a lot of students. So they had to essentially revamp their entire admissions review process and how they look at things. They still have to look at the numbers, of course, because that's one of the first barriers for entry to these highly selective institutions. However, there are going to be other data points that are going to be important, and it comes from the more of the qualitative side than the quantitative side when it comes to how students spend their time with extracurricular activities or with the opportunities that they've been given, their essay, their personality, their letters of recommendation, things like that. So all those things are going to really come into play to be, to talk about a student's character and what's really going to be important in that particular realm. So when it comes to summertime, there are going to be 4 different things that I want all students to be thinking about. And these are the types of conversations that I have with my students right now. First one is to manage the expectations. Obviously, there are certain things that everyone wants to do this summer that may or may not happen, or it may still be up in the air, or it may definitely not be happening. So I think 1 and 2 kind of go together here. You want to think about what you want to actually accomplish, regardless of what you actually get to do. What do you want to learn about yourself? What do you want to learn? What do you want to experience? So I think being able to have that thought, okay, what would I like to accomplish this summer? And then being able to manage those expectations throughout, and being able to set realistic goals to make sure that you actually accomplish what you do want to accomplish, and then being nimble enough that you can adapt on the fly, which is why, like when I have these conversations with my students, we talk about, okay, if COVID is still an obstacle, what are we doing? If COVID is not as much of an obstacle, what are we doing? And then maybe there's a way that we can mesh those 2 things together, because what's more important for me with regard to my students is to make sure that they have a bunch of different options available. And depending on how things continue to change over the next month or 2, because who knows what's going to happen over the next few months as things continue to roll out and the weather gets nicer and things like that, things could potentially change. And I want them to be able to have a number of options available to them. And regardless of the options that they pick, they're going to be happy no matter what, and know that they'll be able to accomplish what they ultimately want to accomplish at the end of the day as well too. So there are a few different types of ways to be able to do this kind of stuff. When it comes to more academic focused type experiences, the traditional way of doing it over the summer is go to a college campus for like 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, take a couple classes, experience life on a college campus, maybe take some classes in a subject that they're really interested about, and maybe see if they want to continue on once they get to college in that particular subject. Obviously, there will be some places that will probably offer that, and I do think that there are a handful that are, but depending on geographic location and the views of the college and what they want to do, the type of risk that they want to take on, it may not be possible. But there are thankfully other ways to be able to get that type of academic experience that I think could still show initiative to a college and still something that you could put on your activity list once it comes time to actually to fill out and submit your applications. Obviously, the most obvious part is being able to, whether it be getting ahead on coursework. I just spoke to a student this past week who is thinking about taking, I think it was pre-calculus over the summer, so she could accelerate her math trajectory and take the next level up for math for her junior year. Instead of waiting until junior year to take pre-calculus and then the next highest level of math in senior year. Or if you're really interested in a particular subject, I spoke to a different student who just really, really loves physics. And there are a couple of different in-person type of experiences that he was interested in that are not happening because he's located in North Carolina. And we had this conversation on, okay, well, what exactly do you want to learn about physics? And he kind of broke down what those specific subjects were. And we went on to places like Coursera and EDX, which are a bunch of self-paced asynchronous online courses. And a lot of them are free, that are actually that are run by, or at least created by, university level professors so like you could take like a physics class from UPenn if they have physics. I'm just using it as an example. So you could kind of like make your own summer college campus experience, even though you're not able to actually get to campus, but you can still show that initiative of a particular subject that you want to learn more about by creating your own kind of summer program from an academic standpoint. Creating your own reading project is a big one. I have a couple of students who really, really love to read. And I was just speaking to one the other day. She said that one of her goals this summer was to read 7 books, which sounds like a lot to me, but that's something that they want to do. And we talked about kind of forming it around a particular topic that she wanted to learn more about. It doesn't necessarily have to be something that's like classically academic, like a physics or math or whatever it may be. It could just be like a random topic like aviation or astronomy. She's actually really interested in astronomy. So she'll probably just do something like that, kind of create her own book list and kind of work through the books over the summer. And that's something, as long as she documents what she does and what she reads, we're able to talk about that in her application come the fall, because she's going to be a rising senior soon enough. This last one here that I have, this last example is a more of a fun one, because one of my current seniors, he actually just got accepted to Washington U in St. Louis, so really happy for him there. He learned to count cards. During the really beginning stages of quarantine, he was really bored, so he watched, I think the movie was 21 was the movie he watched, and it had something to do with counting cards, and he thought it was really cool and interesting. So he found some YouTube tutorials and other things to look at on the internet to learn how to teach himself how to count cards, which he was able to do. And he talked about it in a couple of his applications, because he was also able to connect some of the things he had learned in AP Stats that he had taken as a junior, and kind of things were able to kind of like make sense, and he was able to rationalize how to do certain things because of some of the courses that he had taken before. So just something like a whole new activity that he probably would have never thought about doing if we were in normal times. But since he had the time to watch this particular movie, he got intrigued by it, and he just kind of scratched that itch, and he was able to learn how to do something completely new that he could talk about in his application, which is really cool. The same thing can be said for career development related stuff. I was actually talking to a student the other day who really interested in politics. I think it's politics and business are a couple of different areas that he's interested in studying once he gets to college. And there was one particular program in North Carolina that he wanted to be a part of over the summer, but it's not happening because of COVID. And he was kind of stuck because it was some kind of like internship shadowing type experience where he could actually be there and do some small things, but really just kind of see how local government is ran, essentially in his home area. And we talked through it a little bit, and some of the things that we came up with was, okay, well, like, you can't have this experience the way you were thinking about it, but first of all, you can still reach out to these representatives directly, see if they still have some kind of program that's COVID safe, obviously, that you could participate in some way. Or if that's not an option, you could at least reach out to these people and maybe just set up some Zoom chats, or maybe like a 20 or 30-minute like interview. You can like just ask them a bunch of questions about how local government is ran, because it's something that he has an interest in potentially going into beyond college at this particular point in time. So there are ways to be able to still get those career-related type experiences without actually getting them in person necessarily, which would obviously be best. But there's still ways to get these experiences and be able to talk about them and create a story around them in a way to kind of show that, even though this COVID was an obstacle, you still viewed it as an opportunity to do it in a different way necessarily. So I'm going to stop for a second. Are there any questions, Sarah?
No questions so far.
Okay.
Can I just point something out really quickly?
Yeah.
I saw in your last slide that you had mentioned library programs, which I love, of course. I just wanted to sort of second that that's a really good place to look for if, for people who are interested in learning new things or just trying out a new hobby. We've run some very popular chess programs at the library. And in fact, there's a patron on here whose son has been participating, and he's actually a fantastic chess player. And I just wanted to mention that we have a lot of programs, and I hope that you'll all check out our website, because we will have things going all summer, and it's a great opportunity to just learn a new skill or just, find a new passion.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, library is always a great resource. I saw something, I can't remember where I saw it. It may have been on social media somewhere, but I saw that like people had said like the library is just such a great place for a bunch of different reasons. But for one of the main overarching reasons, that it's one of the few places in our society these days where you're not in an environment where you're forced to buy something. You're just like able to just kind of exist when we're able to go and just get resources and enjoy programs just because it's just a part of your community, which I thought was a really powerful thing about libraries, and really, really true as well. The other aspect, especially with all this free time, I've tried to find the silver lining for students with having all this time at home by saying like, look, like this is not at all like college, but it's a little like college because you have a lot of unstructured free time to do things. If you think about going to high school full time in person, you're in class 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, so it's like a 40-hour work week essentially. When you get to college, it's going to be, you're going to have still class time, but it's going to be probably half that or less, depending on how many classes or credits that you take. So you could have anywhere between 15 to 20 hours per week in the classroom, which gives you 20 to 25 hours per week to fill up with obviously doing your schoolwork and getting things ready, for your academics, but also to explore hobbies, find new passions, get involved with things on campus, and get connected in a way that's outside of the classroom as well too. So there's like a very, very small, slight connection between these two, where like you're at least like getting a little glimpse of, okay, I have all this free time. What am I going to do? Because I can only play so many video games. I can only watch so many movies and TV shows on Netflix, or Prime, or Hulu, or wherever you watch it. So I need to find something else to stimulate my brain or do something fun that I think is interesting. And when it comes to extracurricular activities and what students are doing outside the classroom, a lot of people end up focusing in their application, at least, on all the official things: jobs, sports, clubs, volunteer work, shadowing hours, like all those things. And that is exactly the right spot to put all those things. But they also forget about some significant hobbies that they have, because, if you're doing something for like at least 5 or 10 hours a week per more, and it's something that you really enjoy, it's a part of your story. It's a part of your personality, and a college wants to know about that. So I've always challenged my students, especially in the springtime, because they weren't really doing a whole lot of schooling. It was more so just like work completion, and then they had a lot of free time. And then the summer, and the same can go for this summer as well too. You have all this free time that you probably wouldn't have expected a couple of years ago at this particular point in time. Is there something that you've always wanted to do that you never had a chance to do? Or is there like some kind of small business idea that you have that you wanted to, that you would like to do that you never had a chance to do? I have a couple of students. One, during the middle of the pandemic, she started her own YouTube channel just because she was interested in doing it, and she had taken a media production class the year before, so she had some of an idea of how to do the vocals and the recording and the editing and all those kinds of things that comes with producing a video and then uploading it on YouTube. Somebody else also has their own like denim painting business, where like she gets like denim jackets and she paints different types of pictures or designs on them, and she sells them. So she had a lot more time to do that during quarantine than she would have if the school year was normal. Another student who loves fashion, a different student from the denim student, who loves fashion. So she just got even more involved in building her own portfolio and learning how to draw a little bit better, and starting her own fashion club within school as well too, just going through the motions on how to get to that point to actually launch it once she was back in school. So I always want to encourage students to explore hobbies, because you're at this point, you're 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, maybe a little younger. You're still trying to explore who you are as well too. A lot of people are going to be asking students at this age range, where do you want to go to school and what do you want to do? And that's really intimidating for someone who doesn't really know who they are yet. I mean, there are some 30 and 40-year-old people, myself included. Sometimes I have no idea who I am. So it's like it's a process that is ongoing as we kind of discover who we are, what we like to do, and exploring hobbies with a bunch of unstructured free time is the way to do it. So it doesn't have to be it could be something that's academically focused, like, learning more about astronomy or creating a reading list for aviation or things like that. Or it could be something that seems as silly as counting cards. It's just something that's cool. It's a different activity that you wanted to learn more about. So you dove into it and you ended up mastering it to a degree where you can actually explain how to do something. So I always want to encourage students to try and find hobbies, especially now that we have a little more free time than we would. Lots of times before the pandemic, students would say, I don't really have time for hobbies. I'm either doing schoolwork at school, at practice, or at work, and then I have to eat dinner and do homework. Now they have a little more time to do those kinds of things, and they can kind of structure their summer in a way where they can fit that kind of stuff in. This is a really interesting one as well, because even with the vaccine rolling out, and more and more of the elderly population and high-risk people and healthcare workers are getting vaccinated, there's still going to be people out there who are vulnerable or are immunocompromised, or haven't gotten the vaccine yet for whatever reason. And it's important to, if the student is feeling comfortable doing it and the parents are comfortable letting students do it, to find ways to help people who need help within the community. So thinking of a couple of examples, thinking of the elderly and those who are immunocompromised, who can, maybe they don't want to go to the grocery store because they're too scared to. They don't want to take the risk. The risk is just too, everyone has their own risk tolerance, and maybe that's a little bit too much for them. But you can go, you don't even have to go to the grocery store. You can, schedule a pickup, go pick them up outside, like curbside, and go bring them to that person's door. And they'd be really, really happy to have somebody helping them in such a way that will also keep everybody safe. Another example is, I know Sarah and I can at least attest to this, is that a lot of young parents are juggling a lot of things, even though some, a lot of the elementary age and younger students are going to school. Some of them are hybrid. So there's still a lot of time at home, and parents are also trying to keep their kids occupied or help to educate them and work and keep the house clean and all those kinds of things. So it's a big juggling act for a lot of younger parents. Even if it's just as simple as hopping onto a Zoom chat with some younger kids, reading them a story or watching a movie with them, or just like asking them questions about their day and just occupying them for at least 5 or 10 minutes. So a parent can get some work done or just sit on the couch and take a breath, because everyone needs to do that. Those kinds of things would be super, super helpful to everyone in the community. Actually, I had a student who this past year, he's a senior this year, and he turned 18 in the middle of quarantine, and he decided he was comfortable doing it. His parents were comfortable letting him do it. Once he turned 18, he started to do some door dashing because he had his own car. He wanted to get out of the house because he was really, really bored in the house. And it was a way to help people get food that needed it and also make a little money as well too. So it was a cool little story for him to be able to talk about, just because I think he had just gotten his car when he turned 18. So it was like a nice excuse for him to get out of the house, listen to some music, drive around town, and also help people at the same time too. All right, so engagement with the world that we're living in. This kind of ties back to controlling what we can control here. We've gone through a few different types of examples of how students can, look at the situation they've been given and make the most out of it. And we want to make sure that students are doing the best that they can, obviously, to keep themselves healthy, keep themselves safe, from a physical, social, emotional perspective and mental perspective as well too. And also doing things that helps them feel as if they're making progress, because I feel as if it's not necessarily that we're just bored sometimes. I think just as humans, our natural inclination is to always want to make some kind of progress. And what this past year has kind of forced us to do at different times of the year is to kind of like stop and just spin our wheels in the same spot over and over and over again. So that's, I think, for people who haven't dealt with any of the health scares with the past year, that's what's been most frustrating, is that they're just not feeling like they're making any progress. They're not feeling like they're learning anything in school or things like that. So, trying to, again, control what they can control and make the best of the situation that they possibly can is really what's most important at this particular time, and for the summer as well too. I told students last summer, like, look, this is basically like a free summer, because there's really pretty much every plan that you had got canceled. So you get to kind of restructure your summer the way that you want to. And then college is going to ask you, how'd you spend your summer? And you get to be able to talk about, well, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, because, I was going to go on this trip and that trip and do this kind of volunteer experience or that job, and I couldn't do any of it. So I structured it in a way that, kind of tailored to my interests or things that I want to learn more about. And it creates a little bit more of a story for them as well, which is also really interesting for admissions offices. So college is going to know this, because they're going to ask, like I just said, they're going to ask these types of questions. And when it comes to submitting applications, using the Common Application as an example, usually the first 6 or 7 pages is going to be exactly the same to all the schools that accept that application. So the main essay that a student writes is going to be exactly the same whether they send it to University of Michigan or University of Wisconsin. What's going to be different is the last few pages of the application, because that's the school-specific supplement. They'll ask you specific questions about, what do you want to study at the University of Michigan or the University of Wisconsin? What are you interested in getting involved in outside the classroom at our particular campuses? And there will be some schools that will also ask short answer supplemental questions, talking about, why do you want to go to this school? Why are you interested in studying what you want to study? And using this more free time to kind of structure your summer or your extracurricular activities the way you want to helps you create a little bit more of a story. Because there's the whole, for the question, what do you want, like, why did you come about wanting to study what you decided that you wanted to declare your major in? Lots of times people will say, like, well, I want to do criminal justice because I watch CSI and I love it and I want to be involved in something like that. But it's a much more, or like, I'm interested in business just because, well, my dad's in business and I think it's a cool thing. There's nothing wrong with those types of things, but it'd also be a little bit more powerful if you could say, well, my dad's in finance, and I was always kind of intrigued by that particular field because I saw his work. And with this extra time, I decided to study a little bit more about finance and find out exactly why I like it. Maybe I took a couple of online courses to see if I would actually like it once I got into it. And here are the reasons why I'm still interested. It just helps you create a little bit more of a story, because you're able to put together your summer the way that you would like to, which can feel a little bit intimidating, because, especially for students, so much of their days have usually been accounted for throughout their young lives when it comes to going to school, doing homework, going to practice or volunteer work or whatever it may be. You know, their days are so structured before the pandemic hit. And then all of a sudden, just it took a 180-degree turn where almost nothing was structured, and then just all their time was theirs. It's a really cool opportunity for them to be able to learn more about themselves through this time. If you know all of those basic needs are met that I talked about at the beginning of the presentation as well too. So I'm going to open up for questions in a minute, but just to close out here, we're happy to help throughout this period of time when it comes to the college admissions journey. Obviously, you can click on this link here, and I will click it and drop it into the chat as well too. But if you fill out the form, which is a really basic form, just saying that you are here, essentially, and you can check off things that you're interested in. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about the Collegewise programs that we have and how I can help you, you can check that off. We also have a tutoring arm as well too. If you're looking for academic or test prep tutoring, you can check that off as well too. Or if you just want to get on our mailing list and get information here or there because you don't feel like you're ready yet, or just not part of your situation, you can get on there too. And if you do fill that out, I also have it's really weird title for it, I think, but Love in a Time of Corona document. We made this document last year, and I didn't make any changes to it just because it's 120 super specific types of ideas on very COVID safe ways to spend your summer. So, and they range from official things to very unofficial things. Taking an online course, or committing to cook dinner once a week for your family, and like following recipes and learning how to do that kind of stuff. So if you would like to get that document, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen in a moment, and you can fill out that form, and I'll make sure that I send it to everyone who fills it out next week as well too. That's pretty much all I got. I'm happy to answer any questions. I really appreciate everybody being willing to listen to me blab for as long as I did. And I'm happy, like I said, to take any questions that are going on.
This was great, Matt. Does anybody have any questions, or does anybody want to share ideas of what they're thinking of doing this summer?
So I'm going to drop the link to the form here, and I'll also drop in my email address too, in case anyone has any questions or has any trouble with accessing the form or anything like that too.
And Matt, what I'll also do is after this, I'll send the recording to everybody who registered, and I'll also send your email information again. Perfect. Just so everybody has that in case anybody missed anything or wants to get in touch and didn't get a chance to get that from the chat.
Perfect. What I can also do as well too, I'll send to you, Sarah, you can send to everybody, is I can send you the slideshow if you feel like that would be helpful. Because I know it was mostly picture based, but there are a few things towards the end that could potentially be good to at least, I don't know. I mean, they'll see it in the recording, but I'll just send it off too, just in case you feel like it would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And actually, I think there's still quite a few people on here. If you don't mind, Matt, I might take a moment to just show everyone who's still here our college resources page.
Yeah, go for it.
I can do that. Let's see. All right. Can everybody see my screen?
I can.
Okay. So this is the library's homepage, which is marktwainlibrary.org. And I just really quickly wanted to show you, if you scroll down and click on College Bound, that will take you to our newly redesigned page that has, you can see it lists our upcoming events. Matt, you're right here in the slider, front and center. We also have we have it broken down into categories by SAT, ACT testing, college search, personal statement, college application. We also have we have access to all of our recorded sessions. So all the college programs that we've done, you can go onto our YouTube channel and check all those out. So this is kind of a way we found to bring together some of the information that we thought would be relevant. I should have you look at this, Matt, at some point and let me know if you think there's anything that I should add. Maybe I should add some information from this session about the summer planning.
Cool. Yeah, very cool.
So that's it. Just a really quick little tour of that that resource page that we have that hopefully will be helpful to some of you as you're just going through the process. Lots of recorded sessions and a nice list of resources.
Yeah, Sarah, there's actually a question for you here, which I think the answer is yes. But the question is, can students worldwide use your library resources on the page here?
Oh yes, yeah, absolutely. It's available to anybody. It's all of these resources, all of the videos should be accessible from the web, from anywhere in the world.
Cool.
100%. Good question.
Everyone's still getting their coffee, probably. But no, I mean, Sarah, thank you for having me on. Thank you to everyone who hopped on here and stayed through the end, because I mean, I know like it's not easy to sit on Zoom for another 45 minutes after we've done it literally all week, for most of us at least. So I do appreciate it, and I'm glad it was helpful. I appreciate some of the nice comments that have come in. That's our goal. If you have more questions, I mean, you have the form, you have my email address. Sarah will send out that information as well too. Our hope is that with so much uncertainty throughout the admissions process, even though we've kind of seen some of the results of how the pandemic has affected admissions, throughout this past year, it's still a moving target. So I know that there's a lot of uncertainty and worry that's going on, and all of it's valid. And we want to make sure that everyone gets as much information as they can. So this way, if you hear someone talking about something at the grocery store, when we used to do that at least, you can feel empowered by knowing that you have some accurate information instead of just something that kind of walks through the grapevine with regard to anything with regard to the college admissions process.
Thank you again, Matt, and thanks everybody for joining us this morning again. It was great to have you all here. This has been really informative for me as well, and giving me some ideas for resources that we can put on the library website also, that I think will be great, not just for teens, but for adults.
Yeah, we all, I mean, unless you have really young kids, everyone has a lot of free time. We had a company, we have a company question each week, and somebody asked yesterday, what new hobbies have you started during the pandemic? And I was like, just keeping my kids alive is really my hobby, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah, putting food on the table and just sort of riding herd on your young kids.
Yes, essentially, yes.
Exactly. And for everyone who's still here, we do have a lot of programs coming up. And Matt, what is your next program? I think it's a financial paying for college, right?
Yes, I think that is, let me look. I know it's the end of March. Leaving everyone in suspense here. Okay, the next one it's College Admissions 101, which is March 20th.
I got it reversed. I think is the one after that is the.
Yes. So yeah, the one next month is College Admissions 101, which is just like a basic breakdown of college admissions and what admissions officers are looking for through all different pieces of the application. And then April 24th, the next month, is paying for college.
Great. So definitely everyone stay tuned to the future offerings. We're going to keep doing this. So hope that you can join us for some of those future sessions. And I'll just say, if there are no questions, say thanks so much to Matt and to everybody for coming today. And I hope everybody gets outside to enjoy the sun, whatever, what is that?
Whatever that looks like. Yeah. Well, thank you again. And thank you to everyone for listening. If there's anything I can do to help, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care, everyone.
Bye, everybody.